As recently as 15 years ago, the coral reefs of Panama's Bocas del Toro archipelago were a kaleidoscope of color and marine life. You could put on your mask and snorkel, simply drift on the surface, and watch an amazing world full of corals, sea plants, and exotic creatures pass below. Walls of fish in every color and configuration imaginable passed by. Today, the underwater world has changed. The coral reefs are in trouble. Places where coral once thrived are vast fields of broken skeletons. The fish are scattered or non-existent. And it's not just here. Worldwide, the marine ecosystem is stressed or decaying. So the first question that gets asked is, why? What caused it? And there is no simple answer. Coral polyps are tiny little animals that depend on a lot of things being in balance for them to survive and flourish. Changes in temperature, salinity, sunlight, chemistry of the water they live in, and water movement can affect coral and many of the other organisms that coral depend on. Overfishing can remove species that eat the algae that compete with and overwhelm corals. A combination of several things happening at once can be devastating. A life support system that has evolved and stabilized over thousands of years cannot adapt overnight to sudden changes in its environment. The good news is that there are a handful of pioneers who have been aware of this problem and working on solutions long before most people even realized there was a problem. Through their efforts, technologies are advancing in the field of coral restoration with amazing results. Coral nurseries are being established all around the globe. Which brings up the second question. What is a coral nursery? How does that work? A quick overview is that small specimens of individual coral species are collected from sites scattered in as large an area as feasible and put into an environment where they can grow to a healthy, mature state. Depending on the type of coral, this might be a land-based tank system where the coral polyps are encouraged to form growing colonies, or it could be an open water suspension system where the coral is free from many of the challenges faced in the seabed. But always the intention is to allow the coral to be able to concentrate on forming healthy, fast-growing colonies instead of expending energy fighting against other organisms, sediment problems, or storm surge. Once these new colonies reach a size appropriate to maximize their chance of survival, they are then carefully transplanted back into the natural reefs. Depending on the coral and prevailing conditions, this can be in a time period reduced by as much as 60 to 70% over normal growth rates. So the third question is, and perhaps one of the most important ones, is if it's happening now, what are we doing to prevent it from happening again? The answer to that question is two-part. The first part concerns the coral itself. It stands to reason at this point that the surviving corals have at least some generic defenses against the conditions they are struggling against in their immediate environment. When the parent corals for the nurseries are collected from these survivors, they are carefully labeled and recorded. Specimens are gathered from many widely separated areas and varied habitats as possible to ensure a biodiversity within the species. Careful records are maintained in the nurseries, and when there are enough coral colonies of a sufficient size to be outplanted, the outplant area will include several representatives from each of the different original specimens. The hope is that the biodiversity within the outplanted corals will produce offspring that are more adept at surviving in a changing world. The second part of that question lies in our ability to reach as many people as possible and make them aware of what is happening to our marine ecosystem. Point out some of the preventable causes and encourage a more responsible behavior. Through our ecotourism facility and education center, the Panama Coral Restoration Center will focus on creating a positive impact through the local community. As we move forward, we will be sharing our experiences and knowledge to as large an audience as possible. Check out the You section of this website to see how many ways that you can become involved.